I don't like the ocean. It's dark, vast, terrifying, and it gets everywhere. More specifically, I've always had a real fear of the deep ocean. That idea of being trapped in an alien environment surrounded by nothingness, with the possibility that something is out there in the dark, watching. So, when the film Roulette Wheel landed on Sphere, a 1998 film set almost entirely in a Navy base on the ocean floor, you can probably imagine the dread I felt. On paper, this is exactly the kind of setting that should have me squirming. And yet, that didn't quite happen. Let's talk about why.
Why? Why, Jerry? Why? What's going on?
So, what is Sphere actually about? The film follows a team of scientific experts brought in by the US Navy after they discover a massive spacecraft resting on the floor of the Pacific Ocean, apparently untouched for nearly 300 years. To investigate, the group is housed in a high-tech underwater base known as the Habitat. When they finally venture inside the craft, they find it eerily deserted, except for one thing: a giant, glowing, golden sphere, and that's when things start to go wrong. If that setup sounds familiar, it's because Sphere is adapted from a novel by Michael Crichton, the same guy who gave us pop culture icons like Jurassic Park and Westworld. Like those stories, it toys with one of Crichton's favourite themes. Just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should. And with an A-list cast led by Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, and Samuel L. Jackson, it had all the ingredients to be another classic. Now, to be fair, Sphere isn't a complete disaster. The first act is actually pretty solid. There's a genuine sense of intrigue as the characters, and we alongside them, try to piece together what they're even doing in the middle of the Pacific. That confusion is heightened by Hoffman's character, Dr. Norman Goodman, discovering that he and the rest of the crew were recruited based on a bogus report he once wrote for the Bush administration, a hypothetical what-if about how humanity should react to alien contact. It's a great wrinkle, equal parts absurd and relatable, and it adds a touch of levity to the situation without undermining the tension.
They came to me, new administration, right, political agenda. They said, look, in case of an alien invasion, do's and don'ts.
Well, why didn't you just say no?
$35,000.
From there, the film takes us on a steady climb: confusion, awe at the discovery of the spacecraft, and finally the eerie moment of stepping inside. It's paced in a way that makes the audience feel like they're part of the expedition, experiencing the same beats of discovery at the same time of the characters. And for a sci-fi thriller, it all feels surprisingly grounded. A lot of that comes down to the cast. Hoffman, Stone, Jackson, and even a young Liev Schreiber give thoughtful, understated performances that elevate the material. One contemporary review summed it up perfectly. Sphere features an A-level cast working with B-grade material, and honestly, that nails it. Helping sell the mood is an underrated score by Academy Award winner Elliot Goldenthal. It's sweeping, mysterious, and at times even majestic. A grand, orchestral soundtrack that constantly suggests the film is operating on a much higher level. When the crew descends into the depths towards the spacecraft, Goldenthal's music makes it feel like a terrifying odyssey into the unknown. Unfortunately, the film will struggle to match the music's intensity. The score promises awe and dread, but the story delivers, well, we'll get to that.
Why, Jerry? Why? What's going on?
Visually too, the film impresses more than you might expect. With a whopping $80 million budget, the money is on screen. The underwater sequences are excellent. The divers, the sets, the practical effects, all convincing and still holding up shockingly well today. That combination of practical effort grounds the film in a level of authenticity you don't often get in late 90s sci-fi. The CGI, though, is definitely dated in places, but it is softened by the murky, unfocused look of the deep ocean, which hides a lot of flaws. As for the cinematography, it leans into this sense of pressure. Cinematographer Adam Greenberg shoots with tight, handheld framing, pulling us into the metallic corridors and suffocatingly small rooms of the habitat. The restrictive spaces and constant hum of machinery do create an effective sense of claustrophobia, the kind of atmosphere perfect for an underwater psychological thriller. Unfortunately, if you thought all of this was building to me calling the film an underrated gem, it isn't, because what Sphere doesn't do well is horror.
Why, Jerry? Why? What's going on?
While the ambience works, the actual scares fall completely flat. The editing and sound design undermine every attempt at tension, relying almost exclusively on loud jump scares. But here's the thing, volume isn't the same as impact. A scare that's just loud, without being grounded in character or story, feels cheap, indistinguishable from someone honking a car horn behind you. And when your underwater thriller is meant to terrify but instead makes people chuckle, you've got a problem. Seriously, if you've set your horror thriller at the bottom of the ocean, you've already done half the work. Just show me a shadow moving in the distance and I'll never sleep again. But Sphere didn't even make me flinch, and the film collapses from there. But I can't really go into it without getting into spoilers. So if you don't want them, go to here. So, what's up with that giant sphere? Well, it turns out that the alien spaceship is in fact a US spacecraft from the future. Exploring the cosmos, they discovered a giant golden sphere, fell into a black hole, and ended up stuck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in the 1700s, where they all went crazy and killed each other. Why did they kill each other? Well, that has to do with the sphere itself, which Goodman believes to be sentient because it reflects everything in the room except the people standing in front of it.
What do you think it is?
I don't know.
From there, the film flirts with big, fascinating ideas, questions about reality, about time, about what this discovery means for each member of the team. Some want to leave, others feel compelled to enter the sphere. And Samuel L. Jackson's character, Harry, even argues that since the ship passed through an unknowable event, logically, everyone in the habitat is already doomed.
If they don't know, it means we never told anyone. And if we never told anyone, it means we never made it back. Hence, we die down here.
For a while, it's heady stuff. The film even starts to echo something closer to Tarkovsky's Solaris than your typical 90s Hollywood thriller, pondering the unconscious, human fragility, and whether we're capable of surviving contact with the unknown. And then it all falls apart. Honestly, from here, the script feels unfinished, and the film suffers for it. Things just start to happen, not for any logical reason, but because the plot demands it. And before you can even start to question it, the film has already moved on to another confusing moment, and another, until it all blurs together and roll credits.
Answer a question.
Let's try and sort through this. Harry wants to enter the sphere. To do so, he somehow manages to sneak out of the heavily secure habitat, enters the spaceship, and into the sphere before anyone could notice. Upon discovering Harry's position through the cameras, Goodman races after him, but it's already too late. Unconscious, Harry is moved back into the habitat, where he enters into a deep sleep. Consequently, weird things start to happen around the habitat. One of the crew, played by Queen Latifah, is sent to the mini-sub to reset the video feed. On the way back, she is attacked and killed by a swarm of jellyfish. Except the sequence is so poorly shot and edited that it's impossible to see what's going on. The shots are too tight, and the editing is so frantic that it confuses rather than terrifies. I mean, the jellyfish got more screen time than she did. She was doomed from the start. Later, Harry suddenly wakes up and is fine, In fact, he's more than fine and is suddenly acting completely differently. He can't get enough of eggs, which Sharon Stone's character, Halperin, notes down as eggs sphere-shaped.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Members of the crew, like Liev Schreiber's character, Fielding, don't buy Harry's story that he can't remember what happened inside the sphere. Fielding suspects Harry is deliberately keeping the knowledge for himself, almost like he's gained some hidden advantage and wants to hoard it. On paper, this could be fascinating. The idea of knowledge as power and the paranoia that erupts when one person might be holding the keys to a godlike ability. It should create tension within the group, playing into the film's bigger themes of fear, mistrust, and how fragile people become under pressure. But, like most of Sphere's concepts, it's half-baked. The film sets up this juicy thread of suspicion. Is Harry lying? Is he manipulating everyone else? Is Fielding right to be paranoid? And then just does nothing with it. Instead, the crew investigates a computer malfunction. While Fielding thinks it's an error, Harry deduces it's a code, and together they decipher the message. Again, this is an interesting setup, and when you have Dustin Hoffman delivering cheesy lines like an ominous prophet, it inevitably intrigues.
So, what happens if Jerry gets mad?
From there, things just become more and more insane, like the alien begins lashing out at the habitat, though the film can't decide how or why. It somehow manages to kill one of the crew without explanation. She's just found floating outside the base. What was she doing out there? Why does the film feel like it's missing scenes? And then, the crew is attacked by a giant squid that the film refuses to actually show us. Which is wild, because if there's one thing you should put on screen in your underwater horror film, it's the giant squid. This should be the show-stopping horror set piece of the film, an underwater base under siege by a colossal, otherworldly monster. The absence of a visual payoff might have been forgivable if the idea of the squid attack was used for psychological terror, but here it felt like they just ran out of money or time to finish the effect, so they cut around it. The result isn't suspenseful, it's just anticlimactic and a bit confusing. Things spiral further when the alien doubles down, destroying the habitat and killing off the Navy captain and Fielding.
Jesus Christ. Fuck me.
That leaves Goodman, Halperin, and Harry trapped in a collapsing tin can at the bottom of the ocean. Again, on paper, this should be the perfect setup for a claustrophobic, philosophical sci-fi. That scenario has Solaris, Alien, The Thing written all over it. Mistrust, fear, and existential dread in an enclosed space. In practice, it's a series of noisy action beats where the film's deeper themes get completely lost. And then comes the big reveal. The alien isn't an alien at all. It's just Harry's subconscious made manifest by the sphere. By entering the sphere, the person is unknowingly able to construct anything they want from their dreams, but it seems incredibly difficult to control, if you can at all. All the attacks, the jellyfish, the giant squid, possibly even the malfunctioning systems, were generated by Harry's mind while he was asleep, influenced by his own fears and sci-fi imaginings. To be honest, that reveal is actually pretty neat. It's very Twilight Zone or Stephen King. The idea that the monster is you, or at least a part of you that you can't control, is a great psychological horror conceit, but Sphere executes it in the clumsiest way possible.
Why? Why, Jerry? Why? What's going on?
For one, the film never lays down clear rules for how this manifestation power works. How exactly is Harry's subconscious reading people's minds or listening in on conversations that Harry can't hear? Why is his subconscious so murderously hostile to his colleagues? We're given no insight into Harry's inner nightmares beyond a throwaway line that he's afraid of squids and that he couldn't finish 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for the same reason. The film basically just shrugs and says the sphere did it and hopes that he just won't think too hard. On top of that are the weird editing choices that don't build psychological tension, they just make the whole thing unintentionally funny. At this point, the film tries to crank the paranoia up to 11, but it does so with all the subtlety of a screen door on a submarine. To illustrate to you how ham-fisted things have become is the scene where Goodman and Halperin are having a hushed conversation about how to deal with Harry. The camera suddenly cuts to a weird angle, slowly pushing through some grating as if someone, or something, is eavesdropping on them from the vents. The implication is that maybe Harry or the sphere is listening in. It's the kind of shot that would normally signal to an audience that a character is being watched. Except, a minute later, we find out that no one was actually spying. It was a total fake-out shot, serving no purpose other than to make us momentarily suspicious. This kind of direction doesn't build genuine tension, it just leaves us feeling tricked for no reason. It's like the film itself is so paranoid that it's hallucinating extra layers of paranoia, which could be clever if it's done right, but here it's just clunky. Figuring out that the alien is Harry's subconscious, Halperin and Goodman decide to drug him, putting him into a deep, dreamless sleep. However, even with Harry drugged, weird things still happen around the ship, such as when Goodman is attacked by a pair of sea snakes. But what's meant to be a frightening encounter ends up unintentionally hilarious. Hoffman flails around in cartoonish panic, thrashing at the snakes running up his leg, while Stone strolls in to save him with the most bored expression imaginable. And then the scene just ends. The snakes vanish, Norman is fine, and there's this bizarre freeze-frame shot of Halperin. I wish I was kidding. The film literally holds on the still frame of Sharon Stone's face for a couple of seconds, with a zoom to pretend like it's a live shot. It's one of several moments that makes you wonder if the editor of the film was editing at 4:59 PM on a Friday. It feels unfinished.
What the fuck is this?
This interaction leads Halperin to believe that Goodman must have also entered the sphere, backed up by his admission earlier that he is the one scared of jellyfish, meaning it must have been him who had conjured the jellyfish, not Harry. Locking him in a room, Halperin demands that Goodman drug himself to sleep so that when help arrives, they'll be able to escape. Goodman refuses, leading Halperin to flood the locked room to force him to take it. The escalation alone is insane. What's happening anymore? Goodman still refuses and instead manages to escape through a hatch out into the open ocean. But the film made a big deal earlier about how the water outside is near freezing and you can't survive in it without a proper dive suit.
You could actually hold your breath and take a quick dip because the pressure wouldn't bother you. Although I wouldn't recommend it. Because the water's so cold, you'd suffer hypothermia and you'd freeze to death in less than 2 minutes.
How is he alive in just a t-shirt and jeans? At this point, I'm just beyond nitpicking plot holes. I'm numb from the sheer onslaught of them. Returning from his late night dip, Goodman confronts Halperin and deduces that she too has entered the sphere. Not only that, she has activated the explosives around the perimeter of the habitat, intended as a scuttling measure to destroy the spacecraft and habitat if things went south. Struggling with depression and intrusive thoughts throughout the film, Halperin had become self-destructive and activated the explosives in her sphere-drugged state.
Losing it, you know? Like, I'm trying to keep it together.
What's going on?
Escaping to the mini-sub, the sphere isn't done messing with them yet. As they're trying to launch the sub, they all start experiencing trippy hallucinations. The film tries to depict this by repeating lines of dialogue and even repeating shots back to back as if time is skipping. It's meant to feel like they're losing their grip on reality, but the execution is so sloppy you can plainly tell it's just the same clip played twice.
I can't see a button. I can't see the button. I can't see the button.
I give up. The sphere, the film, is a Lovecraftian monster itself. To try and understand it is driving me insane. Against all odds, Norman, Halperin, and Harry survive this whole underwater fiasco. Now, they face a new dilemma. They each possess the sphere's power to manifest their subconscious thoughts into reality. What do you do with something like that? Hand it over to the government? Use it yourself? The film sets up a moral quandary, one that could have been really compelling if it hadn't been introduced literally 5 minutes before the credits. The three of them basically conclude that no one should have this power, especially not the government or military. It's too dangerous and unpredictable, which is hard to argue given the body count they just witnessed. So, they agree to a pact. They will use the power one last time to make themselves forget everything that happened. In doing so, they'll erase their knowledge of the sphere, and I don't blame them, I wish I could do it too. This climax is meant to be the philosophical linchpin of the story, the point where the characters reflect on the responsibility of knowledge and power, and choose selflessness by giving it all up. But by this point, I was so beaten down by the nonsensical plot that I couldn't even appreciate the legitimate ethical debate they were trying to have. It's ham-fisted to the extreme. In the end, they do it. They wish everything away. The golden sphere, which somehow survived the explosion, rises up from the ocean and floats off into the sky, returning to space. The idea is that with their memories wiped, history will remain on its original course. In the future, astronauts will still discover the sphere in space, go through the black hole, crash in the past, etc., completing the time loop with no paradox since our heroes won't spill the beans. It's a tidy, if ridiculous bow on a very messy package. And that's Sphere, a film that flirts with greatness in its opening act, teases some genuinely eerie and thought-provoking ideas, and then collapses into a mess of half-baked concepts, bizarre editing choices, and numbing action sequences. On paper, it had everything. A Michael Crichton novel, an A-list cast, an $80 million budget, and a setting that should have terrified me to my core. And yet, despite my very real fear of the ocean, Sphere didn't unsettle me once. It's almost fascinating in its failure. The film constantly gestures at big ideas, fear, reality, the power of the subconscious, but never commits to exploring them. It settles for noise over nuance, spectacle over psychology, and ends up being more funny than frightening. By the time the characters literally choose to forget the whole ordeal, I was ready to do the same. And that's it for this spin of the film roulette wheel. What disaster or masterpiece will it land on next time? If you want me to talk about one of your favourites, or just ruin my week, drop your pick in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next one.